Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at our contender profile series for all the Derby hopefuls. I have not put one out on TO Password, but I'm going to try to cobble one together. There's not a lot of information, so please be patient with me. I'll do the best I can to get that out. I know a lot of people are anxious to see, get a feel for TO Password coming into the Derby. But since we've done our contender profiles, there's been a lot of changes to the list. And what we're trying to do at this point now is get into that like top 10 that we solid use in our tickets. And that's the way the criterion right now. Who are the horses we want to use? Now, it's not necessarily about talent. It's not necessarily about back class. It's more about who horses are going to fit potentially into the exotics at value. So that's one of the things that we're looking at when we rate these horses, and I'll just apprise you of that in advance. So we'll take a look at them five at a time, and we'll start with our 20 through 16. And you'll see T.O. Password. He's going to stay at 20 forever until we get a better feel for what kind of horse we're dealing with. He looks to me like he might be another horse like Summer Is Tomorrow. You remember from a couple years ago, who basically turned into just a, he came into the race and he just turned into a speedball, and it led to Rich Strike winning the Derby because the pace was just so suicidal at the beginning. Grand Mo the First draws into the field with a defection of Deterministic. And, he's been a cut below in Florida, and that's saying something because the Florida 3-year-olds have not been great. And I don't consider him to be a factor whatsoever in the Derby. Catalytic, I think, has a bright future, and I love that Florida Derby. And the first time around 2 turns, that was a monster effort. But I got a feeling this horse is going to bounce off of that because that was just a huge, huge effort. Stranger things have happened. This one certainly has some talent. And it's entirely possible that this horse could run another good race, but I think the odds are against it. And we'll talk about that more when we get into the elements of handicapping, when we talk about speed in particular. Domestic Product, the more I look at this horse, the less I like him. He's only running 2 Derby preps, and they've both been slow. In particular, the Tampa Bay Derby was just glacial. Incredibly slow. And yeah, he won it. Okay. And he had a ton left in the tank to close it out. But is that really saying very much? Because you're not going to get that scenario again in the Derby. This horse has shown a propensity to get rank. And I really have a feeling they're just going to send him in the Derby because I do not think this horse has a chance otherwise. And it would help Sierra Leone, certainly. I know some of you don't agree with the whole rabbit concept. And I understand and I respect that. I just think that what else, this horse doesn't have a chance to win. Seth Klarman's a pretty smart owner. So I think if Chad says, okay, we send him in here and let's just send him because he tends to get rank. He wants to run in the lead anyway, so why not let him go? But that's just my theory. Don't like Domestic Product. Track Phantom, we know what he wants to do. He's very one-paced. He doesn't have much of a kick. And he may be a little suspect at 1.25 miles. You see in the Louisiana Derby, he finally backed up, but he was getting pressured. And certainly in the Derby, he's not going to be able to control things and slow things down the way he wants. I think that's going to spell doom for him because I don't see this one being able to handle it when the fractions get even. They progress to moderate as opposed to fast. The faster it is, the worse it is for Track Phantom. West Saratoga is one that looks to me like maybe the light bulb is going off with this one. Now, I don't think he's good enough to win the Derby, but I've liked the last couple of races. And one thing about him is he's a fighter. He does like to compete, and you have to love that. There's a lot of things that are kind of questionable about him, but it looks like he might be getting better. And you're going to get boxcar odds, and there's maybe one you want to think about for the bottom of the Super. That would be the extent of it. Society Men, kind of the same thing. I think his chances are a little better than West Saratoga's to keep running, and that's really all we want him to do is just keep running and get up for 4th at monster odds. He's got enough pedigree. He's got some class, and he looks like again, he was closer earlier, and in the Wood Memorial, he ran up near the pace, and that to me is a horse that's getting it and is improving. So I don't think he can win the Derby by any means. I don't even think he can get second, but he maybe can suck up and get fourth, and that's really the extent of my interest for Society Man. Dornoch is 13th. I would probably put him more like 17 or 18 if it wasn't for his back class. I'll give him that. And this horse does have talent, but I don't like this horse at all going into the Derby. I didn't like that Fountain of Youth, and I really didn't like that Bluegrass. This horse looks green. He looks like he's immature. There's so many things that he looks like a project, and it's just he's demonstrated some talent. He certainly has it, but there's just too many knocks on him right now, and I just think he's a work in progress. And again, I'll say it, I hate the fact that Danny Gargan said this horse likes to wait for other horses. That to me is a really big knock on him, and I think that's why they'll in the Derby. I think they're going to send him and put him on the lead because rating he can't do. So really down on Dornoch. Mystic Dan. I think the Arkansas Derby was a little bit of validation. He didn't run a bad race, but I don't like it when I see they start taking horses further and further back the longer the distances go. That tells me there's a limitation as far as how far that they can go. He's by Golden Sense. I don't think that he'll get 1.25 miles at all. This horse has speed. I think, he probably ought to be running in the Pat Day Mile. But in this summer he'll run in the at Saratoga in the Jerkins, probably something like that. But I mean, he has some talent. I just think he's out of his element in the Derby, and he'll probably be a horse I'll toss. Endlessly is very intriguing. If it rains on Derby Day, I'll use him on all my tickets. He's a nice horse. Turf horses can run in the mud. A few years ago, there was a horse named Patio Prado who was all turf, but he got into the Derby, and guess what? He finished third. So this is a nice horse. He brings it every time, and if they do run him in the Derby and it rains, I'll give him a shot. Let's see how he trains, and if the works look good on dirt, then maybe this is a horse to think about. I don't know that. I don't know what kind of price we're going to get, but he's an intriguing horse to say the least. And if he can run as well on dirt as he can on turf, he's very interesting. Stronghold is number 10. The consistency is what I like out of this horse. He brings it every time. He's very competitive. I don't know about competing with the best in this 3-year-old crop. Beating Imagination to me in the Santa Anita Derby wasn't saying much. I think Imagination was probably like 6th or 7th on Bafford's 3-year-old depth chart. Stronghold brings it every time. I did like the way he fought in the stretch to overcome, to beat Imagination. He needs to get faster. There's no question. But, he could move forward. But I like him. He's competitive and he's consistent. Those are the two things that I like. Just Steel, I think, is getting better at the right time. He's a very intriguing horse. I do question whether or not 1.25 miles is a distance he'll get. I know some of you have commented that you don't necessarily agree with my theory about Justify, but it is what it is. I mean, I think 1.125 miles, it looks to be the top distance for Justify's get right now. His sire, Scat Daddy, was best at 1.125 miles. Johannesburg, same thing. And it's just, I just think the distance might be an issue. He's a big horse. I think he's going to be able to make his way through traffic, and he is getting better. And I like that Arkansas Derby. He ran a really nice race. So the coach, maybe has one more up his sleeve, and you're going to get a decent price on him. So Just Deal is interesting, but I have some questions about the distance. Resilience is another one. He looks like Rocket Can from last year. He's just, but I think this one has another jump in him. Whereas Rocket Ken had plateaued going to the Derby, I think Resilience can make another move forward. He didn't beat much in the wood, that's true, but it's the fact that he got better and he improved off of his Risen Star. And, that has turned into be one of the key races of the Derby preps. And I like this horse. And, he's got back class, he's got the pedigree. there's a lot of positives with resilience, and he's got a Hall of Fame trainer in Bill Mott. This one is very, very interesting. Just a touch, ran a really nice bluegrass. The fractions to me could have been a little better, and I have some question marks about Just a Touch, and he's another one by Justify. But this horse has some class, and I think has a future. Whether or not he's going to take a move forward in the Derby, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking he's a wise guy horse at this point, but we'll see when we do more analysis how we feel about him. But he's intriguing nonetheless. Encino, I really like this horse. The Battaglia I liked a lot, and the Lexington, the fact that he changed tactics and was able to win on the front end to take advantage of the bias. This is a horse who's very polished, very mature. Really, the question is can he handle Grade 1 company? He hasn't done that yet. That was not a great field in the Lexington. However, the Wine Steward we know to be a really good horse. So, and he beat him and held him off. So that definitely may speak to his quality there. If he runs, there's a question mark whether or not he's going to run at all in the Derby. But I'd really love to see him because I really like this horse. I think he's got a nice future. So our top five, the five we've had all along really haven't changed. It's just where we have them. Forever Young, the pace study was disappointing. I really like this horse. I like the fact he's 5 for 5. He brings it every single time, but the pace numbers did not look good. However, I've heard about speed figures that make him more competitive in this field. So we're going to do our deeper dive with our 4 elements of handicapping and see what we come up with. But he's a horse that pace study. I didn't like what I saw, I'm reserving judgment, let's say, and because I do like this horse. I think he's a really competitive. I like him a hell of a lot better than Dermasotogaki last year. Honor Marie is coming into the Derby third off the layoff, and we know that's gold for this horse. Last year at 2, had the steady 3-race progression, got better with every single race, and really what was the most promising was that the fractions got better all the way across, closing fraction as well as the early ones. This is a horse who was running against himself, not against the others. And he ran, I thought, is equally a good a race as Catching Freedom did in the Louisiana Derby. Just didn't quite get the jump. Coming in third off the layoff, I think he's poised to run a big one, and he could be a really dangerous sleeper. Sierra Leone hasn't done anything wrong. I like this horse a lot for the Derby. It's just that Louisiana Derby or the Bluegrass Stakes, those fractions were they didn't improve off the Risen Star. And that gave me a little bit of pause. Now, we'll dive deeper because there's a lot to like about Sierra Leone. But that was just one little thing that I have some concerns about. So let's do a deeper dive and reserve judgment. But certainly one of the top 3 Derby contenders here. Fierceness, it's been beaten to death. I'm not going to bore you by going over it again. We all know what the problem is. The only thing I'll say is that I could not find excuses in those bad races as to why this horse did not do better. Champions find a way. Personal Ends in 1988 hated the mud, and yet, dead last and found a way to go out undefeated. Found a way. And you can't teach heart. That's my big issue with Fierceness. It's the same issue everybody has. Catching Freedom moved up on my radar and on my list because the pace study we did, those fractions were just outstanding. This horse is getting better and better with every start, appears to have overcome the maturity issues, and that just looking at those pace numbers, you want to see a horse getting better with the fractions getting better with every single race, and Catching Freedom meets the MO. I'm very excited about this horse, and I think right now, to me, because I like the acceleration, this horse, I think, can get it in gear maybe a little quicker than Sierra Leone. And I think he's maybe more of an athlete. Sierra Leone's a big horse, got a big stride. and maybe a freight train where if he gets stopped for any reason, he may not be able to start again. Whereas Catching Freedom, I think, is more of an athlete. And again, those pace numbers just really were eye-popping to me. So Catching Freedom, to me, right now, is the horse to beat. So we look at our top 20, and one of the things that's interesting about it is, and I'm sure you guys have all noticed it too, is after you get past that top 5, man, it drops off. It really does. I mean, every horse from 6 through 20, there's an issue of some kind. And not just like little ones. They're pretty significant. So it is going to be really important to deep dive and find those value horses that can fill out the bottom of our tickets. It just really is going to be. I threw Common Defense on there, and we do have a contender profile on him if you want to take a look. Because I think, if Endlessly doesn't run, then Common Defense would draw into the race. And is one that I think is heading in the right direction. It's Kenny McPeak, so who knows? But I think is one to pay attention to. So it's a pretty top-heavy Derby. I think it's imperative that we find those value horses, and we're going to do so. Be on the lookout this week for more content. We're going to start our series, The Elements of Handicapping. Some of you remember it from last year. Form, class, speed, and pace. We'll go over all the Derby contenders and see how they stack up against each other. And so be on the lookout for that. But right now, to me, at this point, Catching Freedom, the horse to beat.